What can we say about the presentation of Ebenezer Scrooge across all 5 staves of A Christmas Carol in only 10 minutes? Let's find out. How's it going, Revision Squad? DystopiaJunkie here, and in this video we're going to quickly discuss how Scrooge is presented in staves 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 of Charles Dickens' novella A Christmas Carol. Now, I have already made separate videos covering the presentation of Scrooge in each stave, but if you're in a rush and only have 10 minutes, well, this video is for you. Grab a pen and some paper so you can make some notes of this super quick crash course, and please do not forget to like, comment, subscribe and share if you find this video to be helpful. Right, so who is Scrooge? Well, at face value, he is an old, mean-spirited Victorian businessman, at the start of the story, that is. In terms of his story role, you could say that he is the story's anti-hero whose transformation allows Dickens to convey his socially conscious message. And if you wanted to consider him as a symbol, metaphor or representation for something or someone else, you could say that Scrooge has parallels with Thomas Malthus, a Victorian economist who had some pretty problematic views when it came to managing population growth, and he also has parallels with Jemmy Wood and John Elwes, who were 2 notable misers that Dickens would have been vaguely familiar with. In stave 1, you could say that Scrooge is mean, although if you wanted to use slightly better words, you could instead say that he is cold-hearted, miserly or misanthropic. To back that claim up, you could talk about this list of pretty negative adjectives, all of which modify the similarly negative noun sinner. Or you could write about this simile, which creates the impression that Scrooge rejects human company. You could even discuss how other people seem to avoid Scrooge, which implies that his personality repels other human beings. Even Scrooge's iconic catchphrase, "Bah, humbug," could be mentioned here, as his rejection of Christmas and Fred's kindness is pretty mean. Perhaps most importantly to this depiction of Scrooge is his reaction to the charity representatives, as Scrooge would rather see people die than use a portion of his significant wealth to help them out. Last of all, when Scrooge chastises Bob for asking for Christmas Day off, you could argue that he is mean because he tries to make Bob feel guilty for spending time with his family, which is achieved by the colloquial picking a man's pocket. For stave 2, you could say that Scrooge is unloved, although calling him an outcast or a victim of poor circumstances, or describing him as unfortunate or pitiable would also work. You see, if the young Scrooge is solitary and neglected, he clearly leads a pretty lonely and isolated life. Because we know that his younger sister, Fan, is dead, you could argue that Scrooge is unloved because one of the few people who did love him is no longer around. Of course, Scrooge is definitely shown to be unloved because Belle, his former fiancée, breaks up with him, as we see in I Release You, which could be where we see Scrooge as a victim, as his decisions unintentionally resulted in him losing the love of his life. Lastly, Scrooge is clearly unloved, and he knows it at the end of stave 2, in which he sadly reflects on the fact that he does not have a family of his own, a sadness that is indicated by his sight grew very dim indeed. When talking about stave 3, you could say that Scrooge is changing, emphasis on the ing, because it isn't complete just yet. As alternatives, you could say that he is increasingly sympathetic, learning, or becoming more conscientious. This is shown by how he begins to show some acceptance of the fact that the spirit of Christmas present is going to teach him a lesson. More clearly, this can be seen in how he asks about the poor, showing a degree of concern that he was definitely lacking previously. This idea is compounded by the fact that Scrooge demands that the ghost of Christmas present tells him if Tiny Tim will live or die. The narration, with an interest he had never felt before, makes it pretty clear that Scrooge is changing, I think. Scrooge taking part in Fred's Christmas games, even though he's invisible, also shows a degree of change. Finally, when introduced to ignorance and want, Scrooge asks if they have any refuge or resource, which shows a significant change on Scrooge's part when you compare this with his attitude to the charity representatives in Stave 1. Stave's foreword is naive, although you might want to use the word oblivious or unaccepting instead. This is to say that Scrooge either cannot see or refuses to see that the future he is shown in this stave is one in which he is dead. You see, when Scrooge thinks that the discussions held between various capitalists are so trivial, he clearly misses the point that the dead person they are discussing is none other than Scrooge. Furthermore, Scrooge's hope to observe the shadow of himself in this future also makes it pretty clear that he thinks he is alive, something that is so obviously incorrect to us as readers. After seeing old Joe and the three thieves discuss the dead man that the thieves had stolen from, Scrooge suggests that the case might be his own, meaning that he can see that people might likewise disrespect him once he is dead, thanks to how he has led his life. What he doesn't realise, though, is that the dead man actually is himself. Despite the clues that the spirit gives him throughout the stave, Scrooge's naivety continues as he looks through the window of his office, expecting to see himself, but instead sees that someone else is occupying it. Finally, once he reads his name on the tombstone in the derelict churchyard, the penny drops, and Scrooge asks the spirit if the dead man was indeed himself. The fact that it took Scrooge so long really does show a degree of naivety, I think. In the final stave, I think it's pretty obvious that Scrooge has changed, transformed, redeemed himself, or has been reborn. This is evident by the immense happiness that is apparent in the similes Scrooge uses to describe himself. His change is also indicated in how he is determined to buy the large prize turkey for the Cratchits, showing a degree of generosity that would have been impossible to imagine him displaying previously. Scrooge's transformation is also evident in how he vows to donate a large sum to the charity representatives, and also in how he goes to Fred's on Christmas Day and celebrates properly with his family. Lastly, the permanence of Scrooge's transformation is evident in how he gains a reputation for not just being a good person, but the best friend, master, and man that the good old city of London has ever known. He really has changed. So, just to summarise all of that, whilst also writing something that could be used as an essay introduction, we could condense those ideas down to the following couple of sentences. Throughout A Christmas Carol, Ebenezer Scrooge learns many lessons and transforms from a misanthropic miser to a pleasant philanthropist. In depicting this change, Charles Dickens demonstrates that even the most selfish individual is capable of helping the less fortunate, a vital consideration in the Victorian era, in which social inequality was rife. Okay, so that is my super quick discussion of Scrooge complete, and I really do hope that this has been less than 10 minutes. Hopefully this video has helped you to understand Scrooge and his journey a little bit better. But if this video has left you craving more ideas, quotations and analysis, please do watch the videos in which I analyse Scrooge's presentation in each separate stave, as I go quite a bit slower and cover much more detail in those videos. If this video has been useful in any way, please do like, comment, subscribe and share, as that helps me out absolutely loads and I really would appreciate it. And remember, as ever, I hope that you have an awesome rest of the day. If you are revising, please do remember to take frequent short breaks, as a burned out student is not a happy or successful student, which is what I think you deserve to be. So to summarise, you could argue that Ebenezer Scrooge is mean, unloved, changing, naive and changed. And I hope that helps you out as you study or revise A Christmas Carol. Cheers.